The FNRAd Snowboard Podcast is presented by Skyview Campers, Never Summer's innovative take on the tiny home. Designed and built in beautiful Colorado, check out skyviewcampers.com. Wired Snowboards builds quality snowboards by hand 10 minutes away from my house. Visit wiredsnowboards.com and order one today. Fixed bindings are easy to adjust, long-lasting, high-performance bindings built to have less impact on the environment. Check out fixedbindingco.com. Rip Curl outerwear, strength, durability, and performance. Designed to search further in the snow, head to ripcurl.com and check out the Anti-Series jacket. I can't wait to rock this thing. New Greens, 100% organic, vibrant green juice. Buy yourself some at newgreens.com and use code FNRAD at checkout for 20% off. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop, best selection, best prices, Vancouver's premier snowboard shop. The Boardroom ships to anywhere in North America, so go to boardroomshop.com or visit their stores in Vancouver and North Van. Support also comes from Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, Cypress Mountain, the Pro Standard GoPro accessories, and our friends at 1910. You can use code FNRAD at checkout for 20% off at 1910.com. The Haven's a center for transformational learning located on beautiful Gabriola Island. Plan a visit at haven.ca and use code FNRAD at checkout to save 10% off their Come Alive program. Dave the Weave Weaver sets the record straight once and for all on the first snowboard that Tom Sims ever made. Dave was an important innovator and friend of Tom during the creation of Sims Snowboards. I'm so lucky to get to meet these founding fathers of snowboarding, and Dave Weaver stands out as a quintessential example of a life well lived in the trivial pursuits of standing sideways and gliding down a mountain. Dave charmed the staff of Donner Ranch, showing up days before the Legends event and living in his van in the parking lot. I've looked up to guys like Dave my whole life. I'm absolutely honored to bring you this conversation with Dave the Weave Weaver.
I had this idea for a t-shirt. So on the back it would have a list of things that you would say on a day when you're kind of too nervous to paddle out.
Yes.
Man, I better go change the oil or something. Or
Yeah.
I better go mow the yard, or
Yeah.
I got to go do my laundry, or something that you wouldn't normally do.
Perfect. Yes, totally.
Except that you're feeling guilty because you don't want to paddle out.
That's so obvious that you don't want to paddle out because it's too big,
Yeah,
but you don't want to say,
you want
oh, too big.
own up to it or tell your friends, oh, no, it's too big, Oh, yeah.
So this is the nickname I heard, Dave the Tripod.
Oh, well, yeah, there's something to that one.
I
sure.
know there is.
Yeah,
How
Jerry
did
Lopez gave me that name.
Jerry Lopez gave you that name?
Yeah, he was visiting, he had some kind of gig where this wealthy guy who, I think his father had a plumbing business in Southern California, like commercial, huge wholesale plumbing business. And so this kid grew up with some bucks, and he was able to go out to Costa Rica and buy a big chunk of land, build himself a nice place near Pavones.
Killer.
And so he'd invite Jerry out for a month or two at a time just to surf with him.
Come surf my private wave.
Yeah, and then he would paddle over to where we lived, which was Matapalo on the other side, and we'd surf together. And I knew him from when I lived in Europe, so it was, I guess it was a compliment.
Oh, of course it's a compliment, but the story behind it, from what I've heard, is that you found a very ingenious way to get waves to yourself.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, in fact, it started out, I surfed alone for years. There was no one there. And in the tropics, the big problem you have is rot. So your skin starts to rot because it never dries out. So you had board shorts, and you always get kind of jock rot and everything. So I just started surfing
You get sea lice.
naked,
I have it on my hand right now.
Yeah, and it all cleared up.
Yeah.
The only thing is, one time I had a problem. I'd walk down there in my pants, I'd be working or something, and I'd hang my pants in a tree. And I'd go out and surf. And I'd come back, pants would be dry, so you wouldn't put on wet clothes because you're sweat enough as it is, right?
Yeah.
And this little family parked for picnic right underneath my pants. So I couldn't walk up to this little family, you know. And so I stayed out there for like 6 hours, and I got so fried. Anyway, yeah, pretty funny.
That's wonderful. Like, what a free spirit. I mean,
Well, you know.
I think one of the things that drew me into board sports was the mass media, you know, like Hawaii 5-0 and Chips and Magnum PI and all that kind of shit was sort of an offshoot of the fact that the surf culture was just kind of growing up, and people were starting to make these choices to be watermen instead of lawyers and instead of doctors. And we're not talking about
you know
dumb
what?
people.
Think about this.
Yeah.
Eric, we grew up in a golden age. Like, I was just old enough that I almost got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was I had this wanderlust at a young age, and I left for Tahiti, and then by the time I turned 18, I was in Fiji. So I found the American Embassy. I signed up for the draft. Like, by law, you have to sign up.
You have to, yeah.
But luckily enough, there were enough people that had kids outside of the country called foreign nationals, right? And these kids were American citizens, but they were anxious to get to America, so they signed up for the military. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So their draft quota was completely filled.
Nice.
And they didn't have to draft anyone from this draft board number 101, which I signed up for because I was out of the country when I turned 18. And I didn't even, I mean, it wasn't intentional, right?
No, you're not a draft dodger.
Well, yeah. And so it turns out that by the time I got back from this long adventure, Australia, New Zealand, back to Tahiti again, Nixon abolished the draft.
Sick.
So I missed out.
Yeah.
But think about it. You know, we grew up, those of us who grew up in that age, it was a golden time because America was a great place to live. There weren't any political issues. Anybody that was willing to work could make a living. And we had this amazing time to pursue our trivial pursuits, you know, like surfing.
You were the very first generation
snowboarding,
where you could actually do it. I mean, you're going to get your parents or your family, friends, people in your community are going to be like, get a job, bum. But
so the fact that we were able to put energy
Yeah.
into something so trivial
Right.
allowed us to get good at it and then find a little niche, you know.
Yeah.
And I was telling a buddy of mine, we were on a road trip to Telluride. And I go, man, I'm kind of in a rut. He goes, what do you mean you're in a rut? I said, well, I've been taking these great trips, and then I come home broke, and then I work, and then I save up some money, I go on another trip. And he said, well, yeah, maybe you need to find a job that pays you to travel. Oh, okay. And then he introduced me to Tom Sims, learned to snowboard, and then I went on this major walkabout, and sure enough, Tom hired me to be his right-hand man, you know, so
That's
it opened up
unbelievable.
a huge 12 years of amazing.
There's so much in that sentence you just said. You went on a walkabout?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. Well, at the time, there was just 2 or 3 places that allow snowboarding, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I loaded up my van with my brand new 1500 FE, no metal edges, right? And I drove all night long, and I'd heard that you could snowboard in Alta. So, all right, I can find that on the map. I'm driving up the little Cottonwood Canyon, you know, and there's Snowbird on the right. I keep going, okay, get to Alta. Okay, I'm here. You know, it's like, I'd never really spent any time in the mountains. So it wasn't particularly extremely cold. It was cold, but, you know. So I get out of the van, and I walk across the parking lot, and there's a guy with a winter stick under his arm. And he's got these little baby skis, you know, about 2 feet long.
K-tails. The
And
K-tails.
these little baby skis is
yeah.
what he said. Oh, but you got to ride the lift with the baby skis, and then you can get on your stick. But I didn't have any baby skis, and I thought, oh, where do you get them? To go to Big 5, okay. So I'm thinking about it, okay. But hey, it snowed last night, so check out Cardiac Pass. I go, where's that? He says, on the way down the mountain, just look on the side, you'll see this big open bowl. Park right there, and you can hike up. So like an idiot, no sleep, just came from sea level.
Oh, my God.
So I started tramping my way in that waist-deep snow. It took me frigging all day long to get up there.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, man, no wonder they call this thing Cardiac Pass, you know.
Yeah.
And then I clicked into my board with those fast-tack buckles, you know.
Uh-huh.
You know, when you do that much climbing, you get pretty warm, right? So made a little platform, clicked in the board, and I had one beautiful, glorious powder run. And I was hooked. I ended up going all the way right to the van without stopping, you know. Took, 2 or 3 minutes to come down. So that was the beginning, and surely, that I guess that was a rite of passage. But
Yeah.
a lot of guys were doing that stuff back then. In Utah, that was kind of the way they did it, right?
Yeah. Utah sort of got written out of the history because the history became the history of Burton.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if I'd met Dmitry Milovich.
That would have been insane.
It would have been a whole different story,
Yeah,
right?
it would have been insane.
So,
Yeah.
I went to this he said, the guy mentioned to me there was a restaurant in Park City that you could go to and you might meet some of the guys where they ate dinner.
Cool.
So I showed up there, and I think I remember it called the Snowy Camel, I think.
Very cool.
Anyway, so I walked in, ordered some lasagna, and some pictures on the wall, and the girl there was serving me food. She said, yeah, they're friends of mine. They stay away from ski resorts, so they take their dogs up there, and they have this amazing time, and it's pretty pure pursuit.
That's amazing.
But I never hooked up with them, so then I went to Buttermilk. I met Jeff Gorell
Oh, wow.
by chance, and the grooming on that mountain that morning was just impeccable, right? First time I'd ever seen anything like that. Just perfect corduroy, like all these guys are so good at, right?
Yeah.
And so we're out there on the groom, just having the time of our life. And the funny thing about it is Jeff, in those days, he snowboarded with a pair of ski poles.
What?
I mean, did you ever see that anywhere? He had a ski pole with
Never
him.
heard that ever.
And because he could scoot along in the lift line and blend in with the skier. It's just like his way of, going with the flow.
Sure.
So then he had this weird little cuff thing around his ankle. It was a piece of white polyethylene with a couple of buckles. And he called it his high back. And he showed me that thing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so then we took some pictures. He took some pictures of me. And he noticed later on when he came to visit Sims, we took those pictures and we looked at, when you're riding, your back leg is a little more bent than your front leg.
Yep.
So that's kind of weird. And anyway, that was part of the whole process of coming up with the high back design.
Yeah.
And it was a collaboration between Jeff, who had the cuff, and me, who wanted to figure out a way to, he wanted to attach it to the binding, like Tom called it the foot plate. So we put some T-nuts on there and we put it on. But I said, that's it. That's pretty good, but I don't know, it feels good, but your back foot's different angle, right? Oh, yeah, okay. And another thing is, see all these boxes we got? That board's not going to fit in the box because Tom wants it set up to ride when he ships it to someone.
Right.
So it's got to fold. So we figured a way to fold it down, right? And then we figured, okay, so what about the adjustment? So we made this little triangular bracket, put some holes in it, put it on the back so you could choose one of the three positions for the forward lean. And we got that thing all dialed in, went upstairs. By then Tom had come in. He'd been picking avocados or something, I don't know. Or I don't know where he was. And we said, Tom, we got it. And he goes, what do you got your boots on for? What are you doing? I said, watch this, So we put the board on the desk and jumped up there and climbed in, buckled in, and feel this, man. You got that support on your backside. How does that feel? Oh, man, that's it. He goes, I don't know, guys. And he's looking at us, God, I don't know. You think you need that? I said, Tom, look, we ride Sorels with ski boot liners at best, and you got those $400 ice boots that you bought in Switzerland when he was filming the James Bond movie.
Yeah,
you don't need it,
yeah.
but everyone else does. He goes, well, I don't know. So he looks at his dad. His dad kind of shrugs his shoulders. His dad, Paul, really cool cruising guy. I remember he used to always drink all day long. He would drink black coffee, and it would be cold, and have it in a clear glass. So he'd have his cup of black coffee cold, and he'd be sipping on that coffee all day, looking at us, And he was boxing up wheels and doing all kinds. He'd run in the office, basically, answering the phone.
Are you serious? You're blowing my mind. I've never heard any mention of Tom's dad
He was
in
the coolest
all
guy,
these
Paul.
years.
And he had a way of talking, Like when Jeff and when I introduced him to Jeff, I said, oh, Paul, this is Jeff Gorell. It comes from Aspen. And he says, oh, I would imagine that you probably have something to do with this new sport, ski boarding. And then Jeff said, well, actually, it's becoming to be known as snowboarding. So, okay, my good man. I'll take note of that. That's the way
I love that.
He's
he was
such
like
a
a
classic
proper
guy.
dude from New Jersey. Was that his deal?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what he did,
Right,
but
sure.
I'm not sure when he moved. Tom, of course, came first in a Corvair.
Yeah, of course.
He was telling me he had his Corvair and he drove across the country and with the top down because he couldn't fit all of his stuff in there.
Oh my God.
And I can see him going across the desert, with those incredible stone formations and mesas and stuff. And he's playing music and he's got his wool hat on because the cop's down and it's cold, and he's got all his boards and everything stuck in there. And anyway, so when he came to Santa Barbara, he happened to show up to Hammond's because a friend of his had drew him a map of how to get there. In those days, there was no internet.
No.
You heard about surf spots, but it was real hard to find them, right? A lot of times you found them and someone would say, oh, no.
This isn't it.
This isn't Hammond.
It's
this
just
is Rincon. And they go,
yeah.
"Wait
This
a
is
minute,"
just
you get a
down
little
the
confused and say the wrong name. And in some cases, like still, there's places where they'll slash your tire.
Still.
Yeah, because
Surfing. There's a scarcity to surfing that's not matched in snowboarding.
Yeah.
It just is. You got that little bit of the shoreline. That's all you got.
Yeah. And I was telling someone the other night, I mean, you're going to think this is off the wall, but hey, that's what podcasts are all about, right?
100%.
So I got tricked into learning how to dance. Now, already
Cool.
I was an old guy,
Yeah.
but I loved Latin dancing.
Wow.
It's just the best thing in the world, man. I mean, you're going to think this is nuts, right?
No, I just told my wife that we're learning salsa this summer.
Bro,
I just told
you
her.
got to do it.
She freaked.
It's
She's
the
like,
best
she
thing
wants
ever.
to do it for
loosens
sure.
you up.
Yeah.
You feel so good. You get a connection with your woman, and it's the best. Anyway, I got tricked
Thank you.
into it.
I'm so stoked to hear you say that.
Right. And I would have never done it. I was terrified of dancing.
I'm still scared. Sure. Yeah.
I was so terrified.
I'm really afraid to see my wife, who moves really good, dancing with the instructor.
You know what's kind of cool? I'll tell you. I've been doing it for 10 years.
Yep.
And when you're dancing with the girl, you can't really see what she's doing because you're looking this way, she's looking this way. You see her face and you see her light up, but you don't really see what her legs are doing or
I
anything.
see.
When she dances with one of the other guys, you can sit there and watch, then you really see how good she is.
Amazing.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, so take my word for it.
Yeah, I got to keep an open mind. I'm excited. This is fun.
Yeah.
Actually,
all right.
J.P. Walker, the great J.P. Walker, one of the greatest new school snowboarders of all time, guy from Utah who's done it all, Forum 8 guy. He did the Bomb Hole podcast and said salsa dancing is his thing. Or Latin dancing.
Yeah, Latin dancing. There's lots of different ones.
There's a bunch, right.
But you got to take lessons.
Of course.
Because you'll be so intimidated if you don't.
Oh, yeah, we're taking
So you take a couple lessons, you learn the basic step, and you learn how to get through a song and not feel too bad, And then the Latino guys who, of course, they've grown up with this. They've danced with their moms, their sisters, their nieces, their daughters, It's a whole different game for them, right? So they come up to me and they say, hey, you're getting it, man. This is really cool. Listen, when you spin her a bunch of times this way, make sure to spin her one time the other way so she doesn't get dizzy. And they're actually helping you.
Wow.
I've never had a sport,
Right.
well, maybe archery, but you don't see that in a sport. You don't see the other guys out on the mountain giving you tips and
Giving
pointers
each
and
other
telling you what to
tips.
do and helping you out,
No,
So that's
I
a real
hear
cool
you.
thing about it.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So I rode the chairlift with Jerry Lopez years later, 96, 97, when he first moved to Bend. And he said, the snowboarding thing is just great because the wave is huge. It feels endless. And he really fell in love with it. You just described instantly falling in love with it. What amount of snowboarding versus surfing was going on in your life at that point?
Well, I had a Toyota van and I had a little floor in it, and I kept a surfboard and a snowboard in there. So, not so much in California. Well, there were a lot of days when you could, on the weekend, right? You could surf in the morning and then go up to Mountain High in the afternoon because Mountain High was open at night.
Sick.
But what really got into it was in France.
Yep.
There's a wave called La Fitania in front of my house. It's a right point. And then, you could get in the morning, light offshore, beautiful. And then when it kind of blows out, within an hour, you'd be up in the Pyrenees.
Wow.
And then, you know what we used to do? We used to take aluminum foil and cook our meals on the motor.
Of course. That's what they do in their
Cook our meals on the
snowmobiles
motor.
now.
We'd get up to the mountain and get out. You have a hot meal and warm up and then get up there. And
That's so genius.
I mean,
Genius. That's amazing.
pretty cool.
So there's one story that you can settle a bet for me, and I trust you. So I got to handle Tom's first board, the 63 with the metal stuff on it, at the Archives at Trent Bush's. If you don't want to do it, we can divert.
Okay, all right, here's the deal.
We can divert.
I have no doubt whatsoever that Tom made his first board, Haddonfield Junior High, 1963. And what I imagine is he's just furious in there, and he's got this thin piece of oak, and he's planing on it. And the teacher walks up and says, Tom, what are you doing? Don't you clamp that thing down, and then you can do your... And the other kids are next to him. They're working on a little birdhouse kit, and this kid's working on a toolbox,
Yeah.
And Tom's got his thing going. He knows what he wants to do. And then I can imagine him taking it out and taking it for a run. He always said it didn't work that good. Anyway.
That's true.
But what he told me, bless his heart. In Mexico they say, after a person dies, anytime you say their name, they still live.
They still live.
They're
That's
still
awesome.
alive. So let's say Tom said, well, in the move, somehow I lost the thing.
Of course he did.
But, I had it, but I lost it. So one day I come into the shop, and he's going furious, man. He's in there cutting away on this piece of oak, and he got a blowtorch out, and he took it outside and put it in the mud and make it look. And he says, I'm going to take this to the trade show. I'm just going to make another one. I go, Tom, that's totally cool. Just call it a replica. He says, no. He was determined to prove to the world that he made the first snowboard.
Well, because he really had that in him. From what I understand now, post everything, supposedly Jake didn't want to claim that he invented it, but he really wanted to claim that Tom didn't. That was
you see the Dear Writer, and you saw those interviews and everything. And
Yes.
Jake did a lot to try and mess with Tom.
Well, the interview I had with Donna said that, and this is another, you can maybe work this out for me. Supposedly, Tom and Jake were talking, are you coming to Soda Springs for the 83 Worlds? And Jake's like, I'm coming. Will there be a freestyle event, like a half pipe? Why would he even ask that? There's no such thing as a half pipe at that time. Right. It's the very first half pipe. But
I wasn't at the very first one, but I heard from
Donna said that Jake was assured there wouldn't be one, and then he showed up and there was one, and so he protested, and he was made to look like an idiot because here's this ski racer.
So Dave
asshole.
Alden told me he was there. He saw the confrontation.
Yes.
Between Jake and Tom.
Okay.
And it went something along these lines. He said, but that's not snowboarding.
Okay.
Because Jake came from a ski racing background or whatever.
Yes.
Right? And Tom felt, of course, the opposite was that is what snowboarding is.
It was obvious that that's what snowboarding was.
There was like an argument about it, and somehow they went and made peace or whatever. But there was a moment, apparently.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wasn't there quite there yet.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure. I think I came to the Worlds in '84.
Okay, then after the second one,
Eric Blem's book last night talking about Craig.
Yes.
He says the first Mount Baker bank slalom, which I remember clearly being there and helping Tom.
Yeah.
He said that was '85.
Correct.
So that means if that's true, then my first snowboarding was December '83, and when I went to the Worlds, it was '84.
Okay.
That's what I remember personally.
That makes total sense.
I remember that, but Chantry says no, you didn't come till '85. But I don't know, it doesn't add up.
I know what you're saying.
It doesn't. I guess it really matters. But the point is, I wasn't at the first one to see the confrontation, but I can imagine, that Jake's sort of saying, "Well, that's not snowboarding." Tom says, "Yes, it is."
And it's on Tom's turf. You've got the legends of legends that can freestyle. He's got a team that barely let go
I would
of the
bet,
rope.
now in the early days, the first few events, all the Sims guys, which are just a ragtag bunch of guys. Jeff Fulton wore a suit with a fedora. People were wearing sweatpants. Like blue jeans with duct tape around there.
Was Lori Asper's there in her
Tom
underwear?
wore a wetsuit, a surfing wetsuit.
Oh my God, that's the best. He did.
He wore a black and white contrasting O'Neill surfing wetsuit, which I happen to have in my van, and so that's what I wore too. So we were wearing surfing wetsuits as like a speed suits.
Come on.
And the Burton guys all had red Lycra speed suits.
Yes.
So I can imagine that I wasn't there, but I can just imagine Jake might have said, "You don't even have a real team.
Sure.
You just have a bunch of guys that ride your boards.
Right.
I have an actual team.
Right.
Look, they got outfits. They have this and this, and they have like sort of a game plan and so maybe even rules and regulations about how they're supposed to look or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they probably went back and forth. The beef wasn't probably just one thing. It was probably back and forth for a long time. And then when Craig left, it was
there was
really
a rumor,
solidified.
Weird enough, and I didn't hear this until 30 years later. This is really strange.
Yeah.
But so Eric, when he was doing research for his book, have you read it?
Oh yeah, twice.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
It's so amazing.
It's so detailed.
It's called The Darkest White.
It's so
It's
good.
the full story of Craig Kelly.
I
It's
just
incredible.
am totally blown away with
Me too.
what an excellent job he did.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so he's in there and he's talking about some of this stuff, So the worlds and all that, and I just can't imagine how that Tom could take it upon himself to like organize the event, collect the entry fees, set the race course, win the event, and collect the money. And it's just like that took a lot of balls, man.
It did. It did. It took a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ken Ock will say he also had his wife down at the bottom tripping the
No,
timing
I don't think she
wire
was there.
if someone was going to beat him or whatever.
I don't know. I don't.
You know, that's an easy beef to
No, I don't think
see
so.
where it
I
happened.
mean, he was a solid racer. And the
Yeah.
best thing about Tom was, I don't think in my life I've ever met a more natural-born competitor.
I got you.
So you and I, we get in a tight situation, we crack.
Yeah.
Right? Tom gets in a tight situation. That's when he comes alive. And man, that guy got incredible strength and focus and fortitude. And so, yeah, no,
He was a born
natural
born competitor, entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he was pioneering these sports.
Sure.
He was
sure.
pioneering these sports as I would love to hear about the 007 stuff.
Yeah. Well,
How does that come about? Does California
the way I understood
invite
it,
him to Italy or whatever?
and the way I understood it is there's a guy named Willie Bogner
Yeah,
who
he makes ski
who
films
made the ski wear too.
and stuff.
That was
Yeah,
part of his family.
Fire
business.
and Ice. Willie Bogner. Yeah.
It's his family business. He was also a very innovative cameraman. And Steve Link was telling me that he had devised a sort of a harness to hold onto the 35 millimeter camera kind of between his legs so he could ski while filming.
Wow.
Way before GoPro, right? He could take this big camera.
This is a
and he could
Hollywood
actually
camera
ski
with
backwards
big glass. Yeah. No way.
while he was filming someone.
Come on.
So this guy, Willie Bogner, from what I understood, saw Tom somewhere riding, or a picture of Tom or something, and then he got hired to do the stunt work for the Bond film. And then the producer was a guy named Cubby Broccoli. Now, I remember being in Tom's office when Cubby Broccoli called. Say, the film's going to premiere on such and such a date, and you guys, got to be there, So we rented limos and we went down.
Oh,
But
wow.
anyway, I can remember that this Bogner was instrumental in getting Tom the part. And Tom had a good friend that he's told me he used to babysit
I've heard that too.
with Steve Link, right?
Yeah, Sean Farmer told me Steve Link used to get babysat by.
Right. So they went
by
way
Tom
back
Sims
together, and Steve
in
was
New
already a
Jersey.
really good snowboarder and
Yeah.
was pretty capable, and I think already at that time was doing backflips, right?
Right.
So, and he was good at air, and Tom knows that, okay, I'm not that great at air, but Steve is.
Steve
And
is.
Steve's a regular foot.
Yeah, so that Chantry said that he was originally invited, but he couldn't do it because he's a goofy. So he was like, well, do I learn to ride everything fakie? And then it's like, no, he's not going to do huge airs like Steve Link fakie.
So that's how Steve ended up going over there with Tom. And Steve told me we were so excited on the airplane we couldn't sleep. We get there and it was just insane, But Steve's got all the details. He told me 4 people got just scum the skiers. Like, I don't know if they were the Russian bad guys or what. Fell
Yeah.
into a crevasse and died
No, during that shoot?
during the filming of that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't doubt it because you're trying to get the best footage in the world, and then you've got no
Yeah.
snow safety people whatsoever. And you're like, okay, yeah, the director's like, you guys ski down there towards me, put the cameras over here.
Right.
And then the guys just
Right.
disappear.
But
That's
I tell you,
sad.
it was a big deal. When we went to the premiere,
Yeah.
we were sitting right up the front, and I think Tom's wife, Michelle, was with us, if I remember right. They came in a separate limo, me and my buddy Rick Sharp, and we're sitting there, and the music starts, the James Bond intro thing with all the imagery and of the women and everything, and it's beautiful, and then there's the Russians, and then boom, as soon as Tom jumps on the board, and the music changes to, I think it's like a Beach Boys thing, right? The whole theater just erupts in the most massive amount of noise you've ever heard.
Oh, that's
the entire
awesome.
theater went berserk.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
So berserk.
Yeah.
And of course, it was over in no time. And Tom was sitting there beaming, just big as he could beam. And we walked outside after the movie, and all these guys mobbed him and asked him for autograph and everything.
Amazing.
It was pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
That had to have been a high moment in his life.
Of course. And it was what introduced a lot of people to snowboarding.
I've talked to people all over Europe and everywhere, in South America.
Yep.
And they say I always ask them, what's the first thing you ever saw about snowboarding? They say the James Bond movie.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Like
amazing.
Millions of people got exposed to it.
Yeah, millions, obviously. Yeah, it's a classic movie, and I love that it's in the opening scene. It's just so
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
they've got some pretty amazing opening scenes. I mean,
That's one. That's definitely one of them.
yeah. But I mean, pretty original too.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that you kind of wonder nowadays, think about it. I mean, I play guitar, right? And so, there's times I feel really good. Oh man, and just every day I learn something new. Keep practicing. No. Oh, it feels so good and everything. And then I get on Instagram and I see some kid. Blows my mind.
6 years old.
Inhuman.
Yeah.
Freak of nature.
Freaks. Yeah.
Why am I even playing?
Well, that's
So,
it.
I mean,
yeah.
Travis Rice jumps off a 50-foot cliff, does a couple incredible inverted maneuvers, lands it perfectly. And
Yeah. Well, what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy. So that's the whole mechanism. You're looking at Instagram and you're just going, everybody looks better than me. They're doing better shit than me. What a waste.
It's different. I mean, back in our day, you take these long road trips and you would daydream, right? You got behind the wheel, got some music on. Man, you'd see that mountain up there. I wonder if I could ride that.
Yeah.
Or along the coastline. I wonder if that's a rideable wave, Oh, man, someday I want to be able to do that, And you kind of think about it in your own mind. You conjure up things.
Yeah.
Now it's all right there in front of you.
It's insane.
Just, I don't know. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different
I'm
time.
not saying it's a bad thing. But
Look,
it's just,
I rode with Tom Shea and, oh my God, too many people to name. I'm going to forget most of them. Scott Klum, Scott Downey, Jason Bassarich, Jeff Fulton. And it was a powder day here. Backside 3 was open.
3, yeah, I was over there. That was awesome.
You were with us. You were in
Yeah.
that big group. That group,
Yeah.
and everybody's ripping.
Yeah.
Everybody's just ripping these lines.
Yeah.
That to me, I imagine. I'm not a religious person, but I imagine.
Well, Evan Pena
Tom
last
and
night came into the bar.
Evan, yeah.
And he's looking at us, how he does with his eyes closed. He goes, climbing a mountain and gliding across that snow is a sacred thing.
That's perfect.
That guy's just such an enigma. It's like, oh my God, I never thought of it like that. But when you think about it, just the pureness of the feeling of being able to glide across that snow,
Right.
and do it with some sort of finesse,
Yeah.
and not fall down.
That's
and
it.
Just like yeah.
So you've started this interview saying, because we didn't have to go to the war, we had all this time to do these trivial things,
Yeah.
right? Which on some hand, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, it's everything. If
Well,
I came
think
here
about this. Here,
and could only
think
do
about this.
one thing, it would be
Right.
this.
Now, my father was a medical doctor, and
Yeah.
he wanted me to be an astronaut,
Oh, wow.
right? So I had a lot of pressure.
That is pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And, that was his time that he grew up. We lived in Houston. That was where NASA was.
Oh,
It was
that's
a
huge.
Big thing.
That's huge.
In fact, when I went to Fiji, the thing that was so big is they found out I was from Houston, and they were asking me all about the moonwalk. Of
course
that
they
was
were.
the biggest thing they could
It's
even
the biggest
imagine.
thing the world
That's
had
all
ever
they were
seen.
interested
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Nothing else but just that.
Yeah.
So we're drinking kava, and they're asking me all about, did man really walk on the moon? Did it really happen?
A real guy.
Because they didn't believe it, right?
No.
But you're from Houston, so yeah,
You would know.
I would know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
I've actually listened to the lunar, there's a 10-hour podcast that start to finish tells you about.
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's called 30 Minutes to the Moon, and it's just unfucking believable.
All the stuff behind the scenes.
All the
happened.
stuff behind the scenes, and what the conclusion at the end of it is essentially, the Americans won the race to the moon,
Yeah.
but it was so unifying
Right,
around the globe.
Right.
Because a human being walked on the fucking moon.
Right.
Someone from Earth.
Talk about viewers.
Yeah, it's everybody. It's just everybody.
Bigger than the Winter Olympics when Shaun White won the first gold. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ross Rebagliati got caught with pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where I was going with this was, look, here we were, and it gave us, when I look back on it, it was our form of rebellion. So rather than do the things that our parents wanted us to do, I took off for Tahiti and surfed, and then, became a snowboarder and traveled around the world. And, the funny thing was, he always thought that my life was a waste until one day, this is kind of interesting. One day he's watching 60 Minutes, and my dad was a sailor, right? So he loved sailing, everything to do with that. He was a water skier, he taught me how to water ski, and actually pushed me in my first wave at age 13 in Galveston. So he introduced me to these things in his own way, right? Even though he didn't expect me to get into it, right? He just thought that would be a trivial pursuit, and then I would go on and become an astronaut,
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point being, he's watching 60 Minutes, and up comes Laird Hamilton. There's a whole story about Laird Hamilton. And then the foil, like Laird was doing this foil and everything. And he was so impressed. He was so blown away. He called me on the phone. At the time, I can't remember where I was living. I think I was in Costa Rica. I don't know. Might have been still in France when that happened, what year it was. But anyway, he called me on the phone so excited about what he saw in 60 Minutes. And he was just so blown away. And then I said, yeah, Laird's a good friend of mine. And that just blew his mind. And for the first time in his life, he felt, okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
My son didn't
waste
his life
That's
away.
amazing. That's amazing.
I said, yeah. Laird stayed with me for 3 months in France, and I translated for him, took him all over Spain, and we did all this cool stuff, and he was just so blown away.
Laird is a superhuman.
He is. He's
Laird is a superhuman. Laird is a movie character, and
Brought
you
to
wouldn't
life.
believe it. You
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it. It just doesn't seem believable.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Well, let's go out on that. You're talking about your dad. Thank you so much
welcome. I
for
had a
doing
great
the
time.
show. And
I hope your podcast soars.
thanks,
and
buddy.
like you said, The Darkest White. What a read, man.
Just go buy it and read it.
Amazon.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
very
Dave.
Okay.
I appreciate you and everything you've done.
Thank you.
Holy crap. FNRAd shoutouts this week to Dave, the Weave Weaver. More people at the Legends of Tahoe event told me I had to get Dave on the show than any other guest. His spirit and style are so grounded in integrity and authenticity. I always will cherish the experience I had getting to meet him and interview him. On top of that, I got to ride powder with this absolute legend. What a life. Special thanks to all our Patreon supporters. That's the most direct way to support FNRAd. Please be sure to come back next week for more FNRAD bonus content presented by Skyview Campers and brought to you by FNRAD Productions.